yes, thank you for making the trip. Otherwise, I will be quite alone sitting here by myself. And thank you to my good friends who are online and could join us today. We don't have much time, so I will kick it off from the go. We heard from Pauline, we heard from you, Tom, but let's hear from Fran and Don. Fran, quickly, if you can introduce quickly who you are and what Insomnia is doing. Please.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, and special thanks to the LHoFT and the organizers to invite us to take part in this FinTech Summit. That looks really, really nice, so congratulations. My name is Estevan, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Insomnia. Insomnia is one of the biggest FinTech and InsurTech accelerator operating in Spain, and we are currently working with more than 50 banks. More of them are in Spain, but also in Latin America, where we are so strong, promoting the transfer of knowledge and the connection between stakeholders from Spain and Latin America. Our ecosystem is based in more or less 400 startups. 75% of these startups, FinTech, are based in Spain. And one of the things that I would like to underline is the model. Insomnia has a special model to promote cooperation between corporations and FinTech companies. So we are based on B2B and B2B2C approaches, and also in co-creation processes. It is we work with the startups to renovate some services they offer and to connect these services in a best way with corporations. So I hope to have more time to go in depth with this description, but that's all from my side from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. I have to also admit that at the LHoFT we are quite proud to have one of the most beautiful incubator in Europe, maybe even in the world, but yours has the best view. That's for sure. So people check out the Insomnia website. Don, up to you. What's Holland?
Thank you, Alex, and thanks indeed for having us here. It's really nice to be able to join the panel like this, even though it's of course a bit funny, and I rather enjoy sitting beside you and having a beer with all of you afterwards to contemplate. So briefly, I founded Holland FinTech about 6 years ago, which is now currently a platform that brings together actors from the whole financial industry with quite a strong reach across Europe. We work with around 600 parties, ranging from young startups to investors to large incumbent players in the financial industry, as well as with regulators, universities, and other stakeholders from the market, and basically try to provide knowledge to everyone on how the financial industry is changing due to the use of technology, and try to help everyone turn it into a business advantage for everyone in our network.
Perfect. That was fast. Thank you, Don. I will jump on the first question, and I will stay with Don, Fran, and I will come back to you, Tom. You know, we had multiple calls with our different partners all over Europe during the crisis, during the confinement, something that you didn't really experience here in Sweden because you didn't have the confinement. And just to share, let's say, experience what the others are doing, make sure that everybody is healthy and safe, but also to see and learn from each other how we can advise maybe our governments, our partners, and what can we do for our ecosystem. And it was surprising to see that there is so much difference in how the ecosystem have reacted, but also the governments have reacted towards Europe. So if you can quickly maybe share your own experience, I will stay with you, Don. How did the government and how did you experience your own, let's say in your own ecosystem, the COVID impact on your FinTech ecosystem, please?
Yeah, so I think the government stepped in quite fast. I think we basically had a lockdown which was not as severe as in other countries, which allowed for a lot of businesses actually to keep on operating. And I think besides that, we already had quite a strong culture of working from home. So it was actually relatively easy for everyone to just pick up their laptop and start working from their home kitchen, even though it has been a bit of a challenge, of course, when you have kids around. But for the rest, I think it was at the period that the schools were closed, of course, and during the summertime. But besides that, I think we adapted relatively soon, and I think from that perspective, you see that the impact has been relatively limited. What we've been doing ourselves is actually try to engage with our members on a more regular basis to really just be a sounding board on what kind of challenges they run into, whether they, for example, were struggling with government guarantee schemes, whether they would find that they would have lesser access to loans from, for example, or problems with fundraising. That's where so that we try to just keep an eye out for the developments in the market and try to address them when they're required. But I think it's good to say as well that with a couple of exceptions, which I think were mostly in the fundraising area, we saw most fintech companies actually thrive just after the first shock of the lockdown. After that, we saw that digitization and new technology were really popular. And actually, most of them actually had a far stronger growth than before.
So it was a great opportunity, we'll say, let's say like that, for the fintech ecosystem in Holland.
Yep.
Thank you.
For sure.
Tom, what about your own ecosystem? And you had some numbers over there that you mentioned that 93% of Swedish fintechs have been impacted. Did you change the way you behave? Did you change anything?
No, I think that, also in Sweden, people are used to working from home. Because usually we have like a good broadband connectivity, and it's sort of like part of the Swedish culture as well. You work from home even before the crisis. So I think that, of course, the COVID affected all these fintechs, but it seems like looking at it now afterwards, or middle of it, you can probably see that they were doing quite well. Because now working from home, everybody's working from home, more or less, those that can. So it's much easier to access people these days. It's easier to have these online meetings. So there's a lot of advantages as well. And I think that the teams are much more focused now than what they used to be. And now they're more targeting their audience with online marketing like they never done before. Because now they have a bit more time to do that instead of all these traveling all the time. And they've saved a lot of money as well by doing that.
Indeed, but what we saw, at least in Luxembourg, some fintechs, early stage fintechs have been impacted, mainly the ones that are working with some of the big guys. And maybe that's a question for you, Fran. You are also using Insomnia as a bridge between the fintechs and the financial industry in Spain and the insurance industry in Spain. What have you seen as a reaction, and how did you guys manage to adapt to it? Fran?
Well, we are not used working at home. That's a difference. It's a cultural difference between us and most of you that mentioned that you are, or your fintech, your startups are used to work at home. So we had to learn a lot in a very short time. The situation in Spain, as you know, has been really, and still been really complicated, but reaction from the ecosystem has been awesome. So now when we go to talk with, not just with corporates, but also with governments, and we try to explain what is open innovation, how can open innovation help to transfer digital governments, and how can we do to transform digital governments in cooperation with the startups. Now doors are open. So we have different experience. For example, the regional government of Valencia opened a call to work with FinTech based on artificial intelligence, just to manage hospital and to manage huge data. So one of the things that we have experienced in the last months is that technology jumps from one sector to other. So most of the companies we are working with in the FinTech ecosystem based on artificial intelligence, blockchain, user experience are moving some of the services they provide to clients like banks to other type of services, to other type of clients, like hospitals, public hospitals and governments. So that's because we also move as Insomnia, and we will launch a new project based on e-health for future in the next month of January 2021. And the experience was also amazing from the other side. It's public investments. You don't mention fundraising, and now at European level we have a huge opportunity to reinforce the fundraising for startups. If we are able to put on the table some of the projects that we are trying to promote in the ecosystem at European level with the Talon Route, which we will have also opportunity to talk later.
Yeah, you are right. And it would be a shame to work from home when you have some beautiful beaches in Valencia. Indeed.
It's not easy.
Claro. Coming back to Pauline. Pauline, are you still with us?
Sure, I am.
Pauline, I really loved your presentation early on, and there is one quote I had to mention it. Money is here. That's surprising for me because I have so many entrepreneurs coming to me and complaining because most VC they are meeting, they froze the investment, they try to focus on their own portfolio, and they're not so open to give money so openly and so easily. So my question to you, and I don't know maybe in the other countries if it's the same, because what we advise them is go see the bank, and that's what they're doing today. Most of them are raising money through loans, which is not the best for a startup, let's face it. But what would be your advice as a VC to those early stage entrepreneurs, fintechs looking to raise money with you, maybe, with BlackFin?
Sure. Well, first, like money is here, and it's easy to raise. Well, no, it has never been easy to raise money, right? Then the money is here, but for a startup, it's always hard to raise money. It's always taking time, and that's gonna continue. I think what you just mentioned with the fact that VCs just were focusing on their portfolio and not investing anymore, that was definitely the first phase of what happened with COVID and the first few months of lockdowns. It was brand new for everyone, and frankly, the first reaction was to stop everything. I mean, close the deals that were initiated, but stop everything and then focus on portfolio. How are companies doing? Do they need cash? Do they need more cash? What is going to happen? Just run some scenarios and stuff like that. So that was the very first reaction, and that's the very first phase of COVID, I would say. The second being what we are in right now, which is transition phase, I would say, where the most developed startups that have a bit of traction to show some KPIs, to show some actual facts and stats and unit economics to show will be able to raise easier than the one that don't have this, like seed companies, for example. Whereas I just mentioned earlier as well, as seed investors, most of the time you invest in people, and it's very, very hard to invest in people when you don't have the opportunity to meet with them and to develop the relationship. And that, frankly, we don't know for how long it's gonna happen. So it's okay, we can meet with people in France, we can meet with people in Belgium, but we cannot travel to the UK, for example. We cannot travel to every single country in Europe. So it's hard. So for these companies that are in this situation, that have nothing to show in terms of traction because they are too early stage, and yes, it's gonna be a bit hard. So my advice would be to continue to show some progress, to show some resilience, some cash efficiency, just to show something, because it's gonna be hard for the next few months. That I totally agree with. The bank financing you just mentioned is, of course, one option. I think it's the worst time ever to ask for a bank financing at the moment as a startup. Banks are going to be overexposed at the moment with SME loans that they issued over the past months. So they're going to issue loans with not ideal interest rates and terms. Just going back to the phases, the third phase will be the back to normal, right? Where we can actually meet with the people, we can actually continue like we were doing before, or we will have new processes. And we're actually intensively working on new processes. How can we deploy our fund? We have the money, we're not the only one. How can we deploy our fund without actually doing things the way we were making them? So as a founder, if you are in the situation where you have good numbers to show, then it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine to raise a Series A based on traction. If you're a seed or a pre-seed, it's going to be hard, but just focus on progressing, and done is better than perfect, and just show something. And if you really have to raise the money, just be careful with the valuation versus terms discussions. Lots of investors are discussing valuations down, not for companies that have KPIs to show, like good companies, good cases will find capital. The one with more difficult KPIs, I mean, it would be harder. So the valuations could be reviewed a bit like down, which is fine, and that's totally okay. The risk profile is now different, but I would choose definitely a valuation adjustment versus a terms adjustment. So I would be careful as a founder to raise money with a fund or an investor that offers weird or exotic terms that are not plain vanilla.
So
finally, you asked me what would be the advice to pitch us at the moment if they want, if a founder wants our money. I guess if you are in a situation where you have things to show, it's okay. If you're in a situation where we can meet, it's okay. We're still not in a situation where we are at phase 3 and we know what our new processes are. But definitely, we have the money and we want to invest. So it's just a matter of weeks. What I want to say is that initiate relationships now as much as possible, because it can take more time than previously. So initiate relationships. You're not the only one in the situation. Just go ahead and send decks to fans and just initiate relationships.
Spam you. I will ask everybody to spam you then, Pauline.
Please do.
No problem. Pauline, I think you are the only VC that's part of the Talon Route. I think it's one of the most ambitious fintech projects we have in Europe collectively. And Tom, I really hope we're going to manage to onboard you also in the coming months. So, Fran, you are the initiator of this amazing initiative in Europe. Can you tell us a little bit about the Talon Route and what's the vision and what we want to achieve? Because most people in Europe, and less even the government, knows about what we are doing on the ground. Fran?
Yes. Well, this is the origin of the Talon Route. Can you see this, Alex? We were there in Valencia 2.5 years ago. So the origin of the Talon Route is a problem that we had in Spain 3 years ago when we started working for banks. Because of the size of the ecosystem we had in Spain, what banks asked us were, okay, guys, you need at least to connect with other hubs at European level, just to know new trends, new technologies, new services, how are they working. So in the beginning, the idea was, okay, we need to attract new talent to offer our corporations. But now what we have experienced is that the Talon Route can be a amazing network for companies. Also, it is for the startups, for FinTech. The best way, in our opinion, the best way to connect our startups with other proposals at EU level is through the hubs. So we start this project together with you, Alex, and with the rest of the speakers, with Don, with Pauline and other friends, just without a very simple idea. It is, okay, we could create a network without owners. So this is not promoted by, it's not by me, it's by all the members. We don't have owners. We don't have rules. The main idea is just to connect between each others. So things we do, for example, we invite other hubs and companies to take part in the open calls we launched in Spain and in Latin America. We invite our startups to participate in your summits, in your meetings, So now we have some success stories, some key performance indicators that we can show. Now we have a new website, which is thetalonroute.com, with all the information is updated, and you can check it. And what about the future? We don't know, but we have in the last weeks meetings at EU level with European institutions, with big banks at EU level, and they ask us to create something. It is a legal structure just to take part in some tenders, in some challenges at EU level. So we are thinking to create this, I don't know if it's an association, but at least to have a legal entity to strengthen cooperation between us. Most of the members are based in the European Union. We are 16 members and partners, and some of them are also in Latin America, but we need to enlarge the network to Asia, in Europe also.
And Nordics, and the Nordics. And we need more people. We need more people from the Nordics. We have already Denmark. We need Sweden.
We will join. Sure.
Perfect. Good news. We have a new member now. Congratulations. You convince him.
No, so that's the Talon Route. a friendly network to cooperate between us.
Perfect. Thank you so much then. Thank you for being the
Welcome.
initiator. And it's amazing to see that you frame your European friends and you have them in your office. That's nice. I didn't know that.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Good. I mean, collaboration is quite European, and we see it with the fintechs, we see it between us, the hubs. When we travel to Asia, to North America, they love competition. And to be the devil's advocate, done in every comic, there is a villain, a bad guy. You're going to be the bad guy on this panel. What do you think about our focus on collaboration in Europe? Because people in the US mainly tell me, oh, it's going to kill creativity because you need competition to be more agile and more efficient. What's your intake about that? Why do we focus so much on collaboration?
I think it's not very easy to solve, but I think it's you need both ends of the spectrum. So yes, we need fierce competition, right? So let's say the football players that play in the fiercest competitive competitions, they're the ones that actually become the best players of the world. So, and if you're all in just a friendly game, in the end you just won't build the competitive skills. So the question is indeed, if we're in Europe, not really too soft for our competitors and actually therefore making it too easy for everyone. I do really recognize indeed sort of the tendency to say, you know, also, let's say that people would just say, you know what, if you focus a bit on that market, I'll focus a bit on that market. We won't be in each other's way and we can both earn some money, which is a really nice way of doing business. But it basically does mean that you're probably not fighting to give your customer that bit extra to make you stand out. And I think that's potentially the risk of collaborating too much. And that's why I also really like actually the fact, I mean, I think that's, for example, what FinTech stands for, in my perspective. It's actually a new level of competition that's entering the market and therefore is changing the game and raising the bar for all participants in the market. And I think that's really important that we, at least, let's say, collaboration will happen all the time. I think there's the value chain, especially in financial services, becoming more complex by the day. So that means that parties are collaborating. But at the same time, at each level of product or service, you want to make sure that there's fierce competition for everyone to compete to be the best and stand out from everyone else. Because indeed, if we don't do that, we know in the end that the winners will just not be Europeans.
Yeah, and we see we are lagging quite behind beyond the Asia and North America. But I think we're going to get there through collaboration. Thank you so much for your feedback, Don. My last question, because we are running out of time. You know, we do believe at the LHoFT that talent, not regulation, is the real issue in the finance industry and also in the fintech industry. So at the LHoFT, we have 4 programs of education for kids starting at 4 years old up to 18 years old. Which is quite unique. You should come and visit us during weekends. You will see kids running around. But yeah, we try to not to solve the problem because we cannot do it by ourselves, but it's a huge issue that we want to tackle. It's education on the tech side. What do you do in Sweden, Tom? Do you have any specific program for the talent?
I mean, I don't think there are any specific programs like you mentioned, but there are, I mean, different initiatives in trying to sort of, first of all, to maintain the talents that are already in the country, because these people, they can work anywhere in the world. So that's one thing. The second thing is trying to attract experts from around the world, and I know that the Swedish government is doing that, but I would say that the most efficient way is that the companies, they are reaching out to the talents themselves. That's the fastest way. So, for example, Klarna as a good example. A few years ago, there weren't that many expats living in Stockholm. But now, when you're out in the streets, you can hear people from around the world, really highly trained people. It wasn't like that, say, 10 years ago. So that's completely changed. So now I think it's more of a political discussion in how to maintain these people. Because in Sweden we pay a lot of tax. And if you want to live in Sweden, and if you want to save money, there's a lot of things that you can do to change that system, like with if you need stocks in the company, how is that taxed, options, etc., etc. So that's this ongoing discussion. But it's very political as well.
Attracting talent, yeah.
But I think that's the only way to attract talent to Sweden, because you have to feel Sweden it's a small country. So of course people rather go to the UK or France, Germany, US, anywhere in the world. So that's why I think the government itself, they have to focus more on that and thinking out how do you sell. You have to build a value proposition around it. But once you're in Stockholm or in Sweden, a lot of people find it very nice because everything works, like infrastructure, housing, all of that. But
welcome to Luxembourg.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
It's a golden cage. You come for 1 year and you stay your lifetime.
Yeah.
True story. Thank you so much, Tom. Pauline, what about you?
Yes.
As a VC, how do you see let's say, the talent pool evolving? You mentioned talent early on also. What should be done? Big question.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer this with VC eyes and how we look at companies, because exactly how they can execute on the plan and build ambitious companies and $1 billion companies is definitely linked to how they can attract talents. And you nailed it. So when we look at companies, what we want to see is what are the things they have on their side to be able to attract talent. So first is the location, but we have more and more people working remotely, but where is the head office? Second is, I guess, the leading team and the core values, because in the end, no one is going to leave their well-paid job at a bank or at a GAFA to go and work for a small startup where the CEO is a bad guy, right? So that the core values are more and more important. We're seeing this. And the third thing is ESOP. This is something we definitely have a word to say on. When we invest in a round from like C to Series A to Series B, there is a threshold in terms of number of shares or percentage of the cap table the employees or key talents need to have. And that's ranging around the 10% mark for early stage companies. And there is no way we make a deal without this 10% mark, because this is something that is really, really important, how you can make sure employees get a share of the company. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this is how we'll look into how companies can attract talents or not.
Thank you, Pauline. Fran, what do you do in Spain? Not maybe just to attract talent, but also how to grow talent in the next generation. What should be done? Maybe? Very fast, because we are running really out of time.
In Spain, less than we would love. So we don't have any specific program to attract talent. There is a competition also between regions, so the situation is not as good as we would like. But on the positive side, we mentioned the Talon Route, which is basically a project to promote talent mobility. But also we are working with universities, business schools, to move the challenges from the banks to the academic level. And also we are trying to promote some small actions with the schools. To us, as you mentioned also, Alex, working with the schools from the beginning is really, really interesting to promote the future talent working with these ecosystems and banks. So a lot of things to do. It's an amazing question, and I think that we will have more time in the future to talk about this.
I think we will have to work on it. And I think your talent attraction is beaches and sun. That's your,
but it's not,
talent attraction.
It's not enough, and this shouldn't be the main argument to attract talent in Spain. I think that we also have some weak points, but also some strength points that we need to underline.
But we'll have to work on it. Don, in 1 minute, quickly, what's your intake?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot going on in talent development. So I see increasing interest from education to actually incorporate tech and more better business understanding in education. For the rest, I think it's, in the Dutch market, it's relatively easy to attract foreign talent because a lot of people would like to live here as well. And there's a lot of business opportunities. I mean, the vacancies, especially in tech companies, are still pretty broad and really nice opportunities to do. But one thing I'd really like to point out, to stick to my previous point, was that I think that talent is very often seen as a set of skills and knowledge, but I think that that's only 20%. I think it's 80% attitude, linking back into the competitive nature, where I think also what really growth companies are looking for is an attitude of people that really want to get there and fight to get there. And it's not just about being able to code. So I think that's also something that people should identify themselves with, because I think you might be, even if you have a lot of skills, you might be leaning back and still not be able to bring a company to great heights.
Thank you. Very good insight. Tom, thank you for making the trip.
Thank you.
Pauline, Fran, Don, thank you for connecting and sharing your experience. And I hope to see the four of you next year in Luxembourg for a coffee.
Check out.
Thank you.
Or in Amsterdam next week, Alex.
You're going to be here next week?
No, in Amsterdam next week.
In Amsterdam next week. I will try. Let's see. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mike, back to you. Thank you.